I never imagined that breaking up with Ethan would leave me feeling so lost. The pain still throbbed in my chest, as if a part of me had been ruthlessly ripped away. The days following our separation were murky and foggy, with the routine dragging on like a heavy burden. The apartment, once a cozy space, now felt like a labyrinth of memories and echoes of laughter that had long since faded. I would sit on the couch, the weak afternoon light filtering through the curtains, and find myself thinking about everything that had been and what could have been. It was on one of those gray, melancholic days that, while cleaning the floor, I heard a faint creak coming from the floorboards. Curious, I bent down, running my cold fingers over the worn wood. The sound, almost a whisper, intrigued me. After a few minutes of investigation, I found a small crack that seemed to promise secrets. With a sudden impulse, I began to pull up the boards. My heart raced, a mix of anxiety and anticipation, as if I were about to discover a hidden treasure. Finally, I managed to lift one of the boards. The space that opened before me was dark and dusty, but there was something there. With effort, I pulled out an old box, covered in dust and showing signs of age. My heart racing, I sat on the floor and placed it on my lap. The surface was rough under my fingers, and the lock was rusty, but it seemed that fate had already decided I would open it. "Let's see what you hold," I murmured to myself as I tried to open the box. After a few minutes, I managed to break through the old lock's resistance. The sound of the click echoed in the silence of the apartment. I lifted the lid, and as I looked inside, I was immediately enveloped by a wave of emotions. Letters, photos, and small objects, all carefully arranged, as if Ethan had left a piece of his life there, away from me. The first letter I picked up was yellowed, the paper thin and fragile. The handwriting was unmistakably his, with his peculiar style that always made me laugh. "Dear Isabel," the letter began. My heart stopped for a moment. Isabel? Who was Isabel? The name reverberated in my mind, each syllable like a stab. I had never known anyone by that name. Today was an amazing day. The sun was shining, and I couldn't stop thinking about what life would be like if we had more time together. Every moment we spent only makes me want more. The words danced before my eyes, and I felt suffocated. The pain of betrayal mixed with an insatiable curiosity. What else was Ethan hiding from me? I always thought I knew every facet of him, every laugh and every tear, but now everything seemed to be crumbling. "Isabel, my heart belongs to you, but I can't continue like this. I need to be honest, and the truth is that I fear losing you if I reveal everything." The letter continued, but I could barely process the words. The feeling of betrayal deepened. How could he love me and, at the same time, maintain a parallel life? A knot formed in my throat, and tears threatened to spill down my face. What else was there? Clutching the box in my hands, I continued to explore its contents. A photo fell out of the box, and I quickly picked it up. It was an image of Ethan, laughing next to a woman I didn't recognize. She had dark hair and bright eyes, a smile that lit up her face. A wave of jealousy and anger washed over me. How could he be so happy with someone else? I looked at the photo and tried to imagine what they were doing, what the story behind that image was. "Why didn't you ever tell me, Ethan?" I murmured, my voice choked. The silence of the apartment offered no answers, only the echo of my own pain. There were more letters, and with each one I read, the confusion grew. He talked about moments I had never lived, places I had never known. "Tomorrow, you and I are going to the lake. I promise it will be an unforgettable memory," one of the messages said. What was that lake? Where was he taking me? With every sentence, More questions arose, and the anguish became almost unbearable. "Ethan," I screamed, as if he could appear at that moment and explain everything to me. "Where were you when you were with her?" But, of course, the only answer was silence, echoing in my empty apartment. With trembling hands, I picked up a small object from the bottom of the box. It was a pendant, heart-shaped, with a small, shining blue stone. The contrast with the dusty box was shocking. As I held it, I felt a strange connection, as if I were touching something that didn't belong to me. The pendant seemed to be charged with feelings that weren't mine, yet somehow still affected me. "Is this from you two?" I asked, letting out a bitter laugh. "Is this what you were hiding from me?" Anger boiled inside me. I felt like a stranger, an intruder in the life of someone I thought I knew so well. I decided that I needed to understand. The letters and photos were just the beginning. With the box still in my lap, I called my best friend, Clara, hoping to find some comfort. "Hi, Sophie. How are you?" Her voice was cheerful, but I could barely respond. "Clara, you won't believe what I found. I found a box of Ethan's things." Her voice immediately changed, concern taking over. "What do you mean? What's in the box?" "Letters, photos. He had a life I didn't know about. Clara, he was with another woman. Her name is Isabel." The last word came out in a choked whisper, and I felt the weight of the revelation. "My God, Sophie, this is horrible. What are you going to do?" "I don't know. I need to understand. I need to know who this woman was and what happened." The desperation in my voice was palpable. "You don't have to do this alone. Can I come over right now?" "No, I don't want you to see this. I don't want you to see me like this. Sophie, you need support. I will help you get through this. No matter what you decide to do, you are not alone." Clara's voice was a balm to my shattered soul, and although I was still lost in a sea of confusion and pain, a small part of me felt grateful to have someone by my side. "Thank you, Clara. I'll call you later. I need to think." I hung up the phone and turned back to the box. Each object told me a story I had never known. What else was behind Ethan's facade? His life was a labyrinth, and I was about to delve deeper. With one last look at the letters, I picked up the pendant and placed it around my neck. It wasn't mine, but somehow, it was now a part of me. I stood up, determined to uncover the truth. The sunlight filtered through the linen curtains, creating dancing patterns on the wooden floor of my apartment. The smell of fresh coffee filled the kitchen, and I allowed myself a moment of calm before diving into yet another confusing morning. Ever since Ethan left, every corner of that place seemed to echo his absence. But what I didn't expect was for that day to turn into a whirlwind of emotions. As I sat at the table, with the warm mug in my hands, my mind drifted to the memories that were still fresh. His laughter, the way his eyes sparkled when he talked about his dreams. It all felt so distant now. The coffee was good, but it didn't fill the void his departure had left. I decided to distract myself, thinking that maybe I could organize some things that had piled up over the past few days. I got up and headed to the bedroom, where the mess was accumulating. The closet was full of clothes I no longer wore, and the bed still bore the marks of our moments together. As I opened one of the drawers, something caught my attention. It was a small wooden box, covered in dust and forgotten among the clothes. My heart raced, and an uncontrollable curiosity took over me. Carefully, I pulled the box out and placed it on the bed. The wood was cold to the touch, and the surface showed signs of wear. I hesitated for a moment, an inner voice whispering that it might be better to leave it closed. But curiosity won. I opened the box and found a collection of yellowed letters and seemingly worthless objects. There was a necklace of colorful beads, a small diary, and a stack of letters. What was all of this? With my hands trembling a little, I picked up a letter. The paper was thin and worn, and the handwriting was unmistakably Ethan's. My heart raced as I recognized his letters. Sophie, the letter began, and I couldn't help but smile involuntarily. But as I read on, that smile quickly faded. If you're reading this, it's because I'm no longer by your side. The words hit me like a slap. I wasn't prepared for this. The letter continued, and with each sentence, the image I had of him began to fade, giving way to a new reality I had never imagined. He spoke of secrets about a part of his life I didn't know, and what struck me the most was the mention of a woman named Clara. Who was she? What hadn't Ethan told me? I loved you, Sophie, more than I can explain. But there were things I hid, things that could change everything. The words sliced through me like a knife. How could he live beside me, sharing laughter and dreams, while carrying this shadow? Desperate, I started rummaging through the box. The letters were all addressed to Clara, and I found myself consumed by the need to understand. Ethan, who is this woman? I murmured to myself, as if he could hear me. The letters contained stories of secret meetings, whispered promises, and a love I never knew existed. My eyes burned, and a mix of anger and pain began to grow inside me. That morning felt like it stretched for hours, and I felt trapped in a nightmare. Each letter I read plunged me deeper into an abyss of confusion and disillusionment. One of the objects I found in the box was a small diary, and my curiosity outweighed my common sense. I needed to know. I flipped through the pages and found notes about trips, plans, and dreams that didn't include me. The diary was filled with details about places he had visited with Clara, and with each new page, my stomach churned. I can't believe you did this to me, I said out loud, as if Ethan himself were there, witnessing my discovery. How could you hide all of this? Tears began to stream down my face, and I found myself in the midst of an emotional whirlwind. What was I supposed to do with all of this? What did it mean for me? Suddenly, my phone rang, interrupting my thoughts. It was Mia, my best friend, and I knew I couldn't hide the storm brewing inside me. I took a deep breath and answered. Sophie, hi, are you okay? Her voice was soft, an anchor amid the chaos. Hi, Mia. I don't know if I'm okay. I found some things of Ethan's, I said, my voice choking. Things? What kind of things? She asked, concerned. Letters, a diary. He had a life I didn't know about. I replied, feeling the anguish surge again. He had another woman, Mia. Clara. I can't believe he hid this from me. My God, Sophie. This is serious. Do you want me to come over? Mia offered readily. Yes, please. I need you, I almost pleaded. What I was about to discover was more than I could bear alone. As I waited for Mia, I looked back at the letters. There was one that talked about a meeting at a cafe that Ethan used to frequent, a place I knew well. Café Lumière. I remembered going there with him several times, laughing and talking about everything and nothing. Now, that space was stained with the pain of betrayal. The image of our love, which I had valued so much, began to dissolve into a haze of uncertainties. When Mia finally arrived, I welcomed her with a tight hug. She had always been a calming presence in my life, and in that moment, I needed her more than ever. What's going on, Sophie? She asked, looking at the open box on the bed. Look at this, I said, handing her the letter. He had a secret life, How could he? I can't understand. Mia read the letter in silence, her eyes widening as she absorbed the words. This is insane. Are you sure he loved you? This doesn't sound like love, she said, looking at me with a worried expression. I thought so. I thought we were happy, that we were everything to each other. I replied, my voice faltering. But now, all of this feels like a lie. Mia placed her hand on my shoulder, trying to comfort me. Sophie, you can't let this define who you are. You deserve to know the truth. But you also need to understand that this isn't about you. His choices are his, not yours. And what if I never know the whole truth? What if he left me for her? My voice was heavy with pain. Then you will find your own truth. Don't let this consume you, Mia replied firmly. I took a deep breath, trying to process her words. The box was open, and the letters revealed a world I had no idea existed. How could I move forward? How could I trust again? Mia stayed by my side, and together we began to unravel that mystery. With each letter read, with each account of Clara, I felt a weight accumulating in my chest. But there was also a growing determination. I needed to understand. I needed to know why Ethan had chosen to hide this part of his life from me. As the day dragged on, the sun began to set, casting a golden light that filled my apartment. I looked at Mia, who was absorbed in the letters, and thought about how life could be so complex. Love, betrayal, hidden truths, all of it intertwined in a way I still couldn't comprehend. What I wanted to know was if I could find a way to move on, to rebuild my life after the revelation of a love that perhaps had never been what I thought. And, above all, I wanted to know who I was without Ethan, without the dreams we built together, and without the illusion that we were perfect. As I recovered from the initial shock caused by the box, I decided I needed to better understand the life Ethan had hidden from me. The first letter I pulled from the pile was yellowed with age, and the paper had a characteristic smell of nostalgia and secrets. The handwriting was elegant, but there was a certain urgency in the words. Dear Clara, the letter began. My heart raced at the name. Clara? Who was Clara? The words danced before my eyes as I read. Today was another day I felt distant from you. Life here in Seattle is so different from what I expected. Sometimes, I feel like I'm living a lie. I should have been honest from the start. I took a step back, almost letting the letter slip from my hands. What does this mean? I murmured to myself. I felt my head spin as I tried to process the revelation. Ethan had never mentioned Clara. He never spoke of a past life or anyone else. But there I was, holding proof that he had a history that didn't include me. Suddenly, the image of Ethan, with his charming smile and carefree demeanor, began to fade, giving way to a stranger who left me unsettled. The second letter I found was a response from Clara. Ethan, I can't live like this anymore, she wrote, and I could feel the pain in every word. You need to choose. I am not an option. I miss you, but I can't keep waiting. The words resonated within me like a distant echo, and I couldn't help but feel a wave of compassion for this woman. How could Ethan have done this to her? How could he have brought me into his life while there was still a shadow of Clara lingering over him? I sat on the floor, surrounded by those letters, as a whirlwind of thoughts flooded my mind. I wanted to scream, cry, ask Ethan why he hadn't told me. But at the same time, there was a part of me that wanted to understand. I couldn't resist the temptation to keep reading. The third letter was an invitation. Ethan, do you remember our promise? That special place where we first met? I will be there next Saturday. I hope you come, Clara wrote. My heart sank. That special place could be anything, but the idea of Ethan meeting her again left me paralyzed. I stood up, walked around the room, and began to examine the objects in the box. A small heart-shaped brooch caught my attention. It looked old and was covered in dust. As I picked it up, I felt a strange connection to the story unfolding before me. What else had Ethan kept hidden in his past? Why hadn't he told me about Clara or any other aspect of his life? I thought about all the times we discussed our pasts. He had always been reticent, and I had respected that. Now I realized there might have been a reason for it. What else was he hiding? What else didn't I know? Fury began to boil inside me. How could he be so selfish? At that moment, my phone rang, breaking the oppressive silence that surrounded me. It was my best friend, Laura. "Hey, Sophie, how are you?" she asked, her cheerful tone instantly irritating me. "Not so well, actually," I replied, trying to remain calm. "I found some things that left me confused." Confused? About Ethan? The curiosity in her voice was palpable. I knew she was eager to hear me out. "What happened?" "I found a box with letters and things from him. One of them is from a woman named Clara. It seems he had a completely different life than the one he told me," I explained, pacing back and forth, nervous. "Clara? Who is this woman?" Laura asked, her voice now more serious. "Have you heard that name before?" "No. It's the first time I've ever heard of her. But from the letters, it seems he was in a relationship with her before me. I can't believe he hid this from me," I said, anger rising with each word. "This is very complicated, Sophie. You need to confront him," she said, her tone now filled with concern. "It's not fair for you to live in uncertainty." "Confront him? And what am I going to say?" "Hi, Ethan. I found some letters. Who is Clara?" The irony of the situation made me laugh, but it was a bitter laugh. "I don't know if I'm ready for that." "You need to be. You deserve to know the truth," Laura insisted. "Maybe he has his reasons, but that doesn't justify the lie." "Yes, you're right. I just feel so lost right now." The weight of the situation was almost unbearable. What if he tells me I'm just a substitute in his life? Then you walk away. But you need to know. And Sophie, if he's not the man you thought you knew, it's better to find out now than later, Laura advised, her voice firm and encouraging. I hung up, my mind in turmoil. What did I really know about Ethan? The image I had of him was crumbling, and I felt like I was losing a part of myself. He was the person I loved, but he was also a stranger. I decided I needed some time alone to reflect. I left the apartment and walked through the streets of Seattle, the cool breeze bringing some clarity to my confused mind. The city lights flickered as if trying to tell me their own secrets, but I wasn't ready to listen. I found a bench in a park and sat down, looking at the darkening sky. The city was alive around me, but I felt isolated. I looked at the brooch I had taken from the box, feeling its cold texture between my fingers. "Why did you do this, Ethan?" I asked aloud, as if he could hear me. "Why didn't you tell me?" The answer didn't come, of course, but the need to confront him was becoming more urgent. I couldn't live like this anymore, in the shadow of a secret that wasn't mine. The love I felt for him was being tested in ways I never imagined. And as the sun set, I knew I had to make a choice. I sat on the floor of my apartment, surrounded by the soft light of the late afternoon filtering through the windows. The wooden box, which I had found beneath the floorboards, seemed almost alive, pulsating with secrets I never imagined Ethan could hide. My heart raced with each letter I unrolled, with each object that emerged like a trace of a life I didn't know. It was as if I were discovering a side of him that had remained hidden, a side that perhaps even he didn't know existed. The first letter I picked up had yellowed paper and an elegant, yet trembling, handwriting. As I read, I realized it was correspondence from a woman named Clara. "Ethan, my love," it began. My hands trembled as I read the words laden with affection and pain. "The longing I feel for you is unbearable. Each day away from you is like a year, and I can't bear the thought that you might be with someone else." My throat tightened. Was I that someone else? How could I have been so naive? Why didn't you ever tell me about her? I murmured to myself. My voice choked. The room was silent, but Ethan's presence seemed to linger in every corner, shrouded in mystery. I continued to explore the box, pulling out small objects that seemed to tell their own stories. A pair of tickets to a rock concert, dated 2 years ago, and a black and white photograph of a group of friends, with Ethan in the middle, smiling carefree. "Why didn't you ever take me here?" I whispered, looking at that frozen moment in time. The joyful expressions on their faces were a stark contrast to the confusion I felt. The next letter had a darker tone. "Ethan, you need to get out of this life," it said. "I can't wait for you any longer while you risk losing yourself." It was from someone named Lucas, who seemed to be a close friend. The text overflowed with concern and urgency. "I know you love the adrenaline, but this could end badly. Think of me, think of us." The restlessness inside me grew. What life was this? What was he doing away from me? I didn't know anything. I should have asked more. I thought aloud, feeling frustration bubble up. I should have realized there was more to you. Anger mixed with sadness, and a wave of memories of moments shared with Ethan hit me. Every laugh, every touch now seemed wrapped in a fog of uncertainties. Then I found a small notebook, its pages worn and scribbled. I flipped through it slowly, absorbing the words that seemed to have been written in moments of despair and reflection. "She doesn't understand," was written on one of the pages. "She can't know who I really am." My heart sank. It was as if I had been an illusion to him, a version of his life he had created to protect himself. "Who am I to you, Ethan?" I asked, even though he was no longer there to answer. "I thought we were a team." Tears began to slip down my face, and I angrily wiped them away, not wanting to feel this way. I didn't want to be the victim in someone else's story. After a few hours, as the daylight began to fade, I decided I needed some time to process all of this. The box was still open beside me, but I could no longer look at it. I got up, feeling the need to breathe fresh air, to escape that prison of memories and secrets. I grabbed my coat and stepped outside. The cold Seattle wind embraced me instantly, bringing a sense of relief. I needed to clear my mind. I walked aimlessly, allowing the familiar streets to turn into a maze of reflection. People passed by me, each with their own stories, their own pains. What I didn't know was that I too was part of a larger story, one that now intertwined with Ethan's in ways I could never imagine. As I walked, my phone vibrated in my pocket. It was my friend Maya, known for her straightforwardness. "Hey Sophie, how are you? We need to meet up. I want to know how you're handling all this." "Hi Maya," I said, trying to hide the vulnerability in my voice. I'm trying to understand some things. Understanding about Ethan, right? Look, I know it's hard, but you need to talk about it. You can't keep it all to yourself." Her voice was a balm, but also a painful reminder that I wasn't alone. "I'll pick you up in 20 minutes. Let's get coffee and talk." "Okay, thanks," I replied, feeling a glimmer of hope rise in my chest. I needed someone who could listen, someone who wasn't trapped in the image I had of Ethan. "See you soon." After hanging up, I continued walking. The city had a new perspective, as if everything was moving in slow motion. The lights began to shine, and I allowed myself to think about how life could be different. What did I really want? The image of Ethan, with his bright eyes and charming smile, was still alive in my mind, but now it was mixed with this new reality. I needed to face the facts, the raw truth. And at the same time, that truth terrified me. What else had Ethan hidden from me? Was I ready to find out? And most importantly, would I be able to handle the answers I uncovered? Upon arriving at the cafe, I felt a little stronger. The conversation with Maya would be a step, a way to let out everything that was bubbling inside me. One day at a time, I thought, as I pushed open the cafe door and was enveloped by the rich aroma of fresh coffee. Life went on, and I needed to decide if I was ready to move forward, even if it meant leaving part of myself behind, and perhaps, just perhaps, finding a new version of who I really am. The box beneath the floorboard seemed harmless at first glance, but now, as I opened it, I felt a mix of anxiety and curiosity that left me restless. The smell of aged paper and old wood filled my nostrils, and I hesitated for a moment, my hand hovering over the lid. I remembered Ethan, his captivating smile, the stories he always told, and how he seemed to be the most transparent person in the world. But now, with the box open in front of me, all of that felt like a grand theater. With a deep sigh, I pulled one of the letters from inside the box. It was yellowed paper, with stains of time that spoke of a past I didn't know. The name at the top made me stop. "For you, my love." My throat tightened. The handwriting was fluid, almost poetic, and with each word I read, I felt a piece of the Ethan I knew shatter. The letter spoke of longing, promises, and a love that seemed more intense than anything I had ever experienced. "How could you have hidden this from me, Ethan?" I murmured to myself, my voice choked. Anger and sadness swirled inside me, forming a whirlwind I didn't know how to handle. What else had he hidden? What else didn't I know about his life? I continued to explore the box, pulling out the letters one by one, each more emotional than the last. Some spoke of travels, of places he had visited, of people he had met. There was a letter addressed to someone named Lila, and the way he referred to her made me feel as if I were intruding on something very personal. "You are the light of my life," he wrote, "and even when we are apart, you are always in my heart." I felt my stomach churn. Who was Lila? What was between them? Why didn't you ever tell me about her? I asked, but the only answer was the silence of the room, echoing my pain. What was I doing there? It felt as if I were unearthing secrets that weren't mine. But at the same time, the desire to understand who Ethan really was consumed me. With every letter I read, his image became more complex, more three-dimensional, and I wondered if I had ever truly known him. After the letters, I found a small object wrapped in a piece of fabric. As I unwrapped it, I came across a silver necklace with a heart-shaped pendant. It was delicate, and the signs of wear showed that it had been very loved. Was it a gift? Who had he given it to? My heart raced at the thought that it could belong to Lila, but then I remembered that Ethan had a special way of giving gifts. He always said that a gift should tell a story, and at that moment, I didn't know if the story that necklace carried would be one I would be proud to hear. "Ethan, who are you really?" I whispered, a mix of pain and confusion in my voice. The echo of the question floated in the air, but there was no one to answer it. Just me and the ghosts of the past, the memories he had left behind. I closed my eyes for a moment, trying to organize my thoughts. That place, which had once been a cozy home, now felt like a prison. With each new item I pulled from the box, the reality I was facing became heavier. I was not just a girlfriend who had been left behind. I was a woman who had been deceived, who had trusted someone she didn't truly know. And that hurt. I decided I needed a break. I got up and went to the kitchen, but what I really wanted was a glass of wine. I opened the bottle and poured the red liquid into a glass, watching the drops slide down the glass. The drink tasted bitter, very similar to what I felt inside. I sat down at the table, looking out the window as the rain began to fall, the drops sliding down the glass like tears I couldn't shed. "You were always so perfect, Ethan," I murmured, remembering the nights we talked about our dreams, our plans. "How could you leave me in the dark like this?" The emptiness that formed in my chest was unbearable. I wanted to scream, I wanted to cry, but all I could do was remain silent, trapped in a labyrinth of memories. I decided I couldn't continue like this. I returned to the box and took the necklace again, holding it in the palm of my hand. It was small, but it carried an immense weight. "If you didn't tell the truth," I said, "I need to know what else you hid." Thus, I began to examine each item more carefully. There were photos, some yellowed, others still vivid, showing Ethan in different stages of life. He looked so happy, so free. There was a photo of a group of friends, all smiling, and in the background, a woman with curly hair I didn't recognize. The look Ethan gave her was unmistakable, a look I had never received. "Who are you?" I asked the photo, as if it could answer me. The emptiness I felt was like an echo, resonating in every corner of the room. I wanted to understand, but the truth seemed farther away, like a mystery I couldn't solve on my own. Finally, I found a journal. The leather was worn, and as I opened it, the pages were filled with notes, thoughts that seemed to belong to another life. Each line written by Ethan revealed a side of him I had never seen. I read on, absorbing each word, trying to piece together the puzzle. It was as if I were discovering a new Ethan, a man with fears, insecurities, and dreams he hadn't shared with me. "If you had so much to say, why didn't you tell me?" I exclaimed, frustration overflowing. Even amidst the pain, something inside me wanted to hear, wanted to understand what led him to hide parts of himself. Was it fear? Shame? Or was it simply a dark side he didn't want me to see? Hours passed, and I remained there, immersed in his secrets. Night fell, and the darkness of the room reflected the confusion reigning in my mind. Those revelations were transforming me, and I didn't know if it was good or bad. While I wanted to understand, I also wanted to forget. But what I was discovering forced me to reevaluate everything I believed about Ethan and, consequently, about myself. With one last look at the box, I closed the journal and put everything back. The pain and confusion were too great for me to handle alone. Deep down, I knew I needed help. The lights of the city of Seattle flickered outside, but I felt completely isolated within my small apartment. The silence that had once been a comfort now felt oppressive. The box I found under the floor was on the table, open, with its letters and objects scattered like a puzzle I couldn't piece together. The words written on yellowed paper danced before my eyes, but what caught my attention the most were the objects accompanying the letters. A leather bracelet, a black and white photograph, and a small journal. The first letter I read was addressed to someone named Clara. "Dear Clara," it began, and my heart tightened. Ethan had never mentioned a Clara. He always talked about his childhood, his friends, but never about a Clara. The words flowed like a river, revealing deep feelings I never imagined he could have for someone else. "This city is filled with memories I carry with me, but you are the only one who makes my heart race. I miss you every day. Why didn't you tell me, Ethan?" I murmured, looking at the letter as if it could respond. Tears began to slide down my face. "What else did you hide from me?" The weight of betrayal was piling up in my chest, and I wondered if I would ever be able to trust again. I lifted my eyes and looked out the window. The rain began to fall, as if the sky were also sharing my pain. The city seemed so distant, so strange. The man I loved, who I knew so well, was an enigma I couldn't decipher. My thoughts were interrupted by a familiar sound. The phone rang, and, hesitantly, I walked over to it. It was Mia, my best friend. "Hi, Sophie. How are you?" Her voice radiated concern. "Hi, Mia. I don't know. I found some things that I shouldn't have found," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "Things? What do you mean?" She paused, and I could feel her growing curiosity. "A box with letters and objects. It's about Ethan," I confessed, my voice trembling. "About Ethan? What do you mean? What did you find?" Her voice was now a whisper, as if she feared I would say something that could break the magic of our world. "He had another life, Mia. Letters to someone named Clara. I didn't know he felt that way about someone else," I said, the pain becoming more palpable with every word. I don't know what to think. My God, Sophie, that's cruel. You need some time to process all of this," she said, and I could hear the concern in her voice. "But I can't stop thinking about how he deceived me. How could he be so perfect and yet so fake?" I let out a sob. How could he love me and still have room for someone else? Love isn't simple, and you know that. Sometimes, people have parts of themselves they never show. But you need to protect yourself, understand what really happened, Mia said, with the wisdom I had always admired in her. "I just want to understand. I thought I knew him so well," I replied, looking at the box as if it could give me answers. "Put it all in the box, Sophie. Don't let it consume you. You need clarity," she suggested, and I knew she was right. But at the same time, a part of me wanted to dive deep into the confusion, the pain, and discover what else Ethan had hidden. "I'll try, Mia. Thank you for listening to me," I said, trying to bring some order to my thoughts. "I'm here whenever you need me. And remember, you are strong. This doesn't define who you are," she replied, and her words gave me some comfort. I hung up and returned to the table. The leather bracelet that accompanied the letters was there, and I picked it up. It was beautiful with a rustic style, but now it reminded me of the betrayal. What else did this bracelet represent? A gift for Clara? A symbol of something I couldn't understand? As I contemplated the bracelet, a thought struck me. What if I tried to get into Ethan's mind through the letters? What else could he have written? I went back to the first letter, rereading each word, trying to feel the emotion he expressed. His handwriting was fluid, filled with passion and desire. "I promise I will be by your side, no matter what happens," he wrote, as I wondered what the true meaning of that promise was. The second letter I picked up talked about a moment they had in a cafe, a place Ethan used to take me. "I remember the way you smiled that day, as if the whole world belonged to us," he described. "I knew in that moment that I was lost to you." "You were that lost?" I spoke aloud, not expecting a response. "Why didn't you tell me?" The pain was like a sharp knife, cutting my hope and turning it into distrust. I decided I needed to know more. The journal I found under the box was small, but filled with handwritten pages. I opened it carefully, as if it were about to reveal a long-held secret. The first pages were about trivialities, notes about work, thoughts about friends. But as I progressed, the entries became more emotional. "Today I met with Clara. She has a smile that lights up my day. I feel like I'm living a lie, but I can't stop thinking about her," one of the entries said. My heart raced as I read those words. What was I supposed to do with this information? What did it mean to live a lie? I was interrupted by knocks on the door. A surge of desperation took over me. Was it Ethan? Was he coming back? With my heart racing, I went to the door and opened it. To my surprise, it wasn't him. It was my neighbor, Mr. Thompson, with his gentle smile. "Sophie, how are you? I heard some noises and thought I'd check on you," he said, concerned. I'm fine, just organizing some things," I replied, trying to hide the agitation that was consuming me. "If you need anything, I'm here." "Sometimes a conversation helps," he offered, and I smiled shyly. "Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Just personal things," I said, returning to the table and looking at the box. I didn't want him to see the pain I was facing. "If you need, you know where to find me," he finished, before walking away. I closed the door, feeling the loneliness wrap around me again. I sat back down at the table and looked at the journal. What more could he have written? What else did I not know about Ethan? The questions piled up in my mind, along with the certainty that I needed answers. I took a deep breath and decided to continue reading, determined to unravel the mystery that Ethan had left behind. The letters were scattered across the living room table, like dry leaves that had fallen from a tree. Each one had a different weight. Each carried a voice I didn't expect to hear. As I read, a knot formed in my throat. Ethan's words, written in fluid handwriting full of emotion, seemed to dance in my mind. What else didn't I know about him? What more had he hidden? "I can't believe he hid this from me," I murmured to myself, holding a letter that spoke of a lost love. A love that isn't me. The pain was palpable, as if a dagger had been plunged into my chest. In every sentence, there was a mix of longing and regret that confused me. Ethan was not just the man I shared moments with, but also someone who had a story deeply rooted in secrets. I was interrupted by the sound of my phone vibrating on the table. I looked at the screen and saw Clara's name, my best friend. I took a deep breath, trying to compose myself before answering. "Hi, Sophie. How are you?" Her voice was soft, filled with concern. "Hi, Clara. I'm trying to understand some things," I replied, glancing back at the letters. "I found some things about Ethan that left me confused." "Things? What do you mean?" She seemed interested, but at the same time cautious. "He had a life before me. Letters, objects, things that make me think I never really knew him." Frustration poured from my voice as I stood up from the table, starting to pace back and forth. "My God, Sophie, what did you find out?" Clara asked, and I could hear the sound of a chair being pulled. She was getting comfortable, ready to listen. "He wrote about a love he had before me, a woman named Lily. It's like I'm a shadow in his life." My heart raced, and the pain manifested in every word. "You can't let this get to you, you know? We all have a past. What matters is what you've built together." Clara tried to comfort me, but insecurity nestled in my chest like a wounded animal. "But he didn't tell me. He hid this from me. How can I trust him now?" Anger and sadness mixed, creating a whirlwind of emotions. "Have you talked to him about this?" Clara asked, concern tinging her voice. "No, not yet. I'm afraid of his reaction. What if he doesn't have a good enough explanation? What if I find out our whole relationship was a farce?" My tone was sharper than I intended, but I couldn't help it. "If you love him, you need to give him a chance to explain. Don't jump to conclusions, Sophie. This could ruin everything," Clara advised, and I felt a weight on my conscience. "You're right. I'll talk to him, but I don't know how." Uncertainty hung in the air like a dark cloud. "Find a quiet moment. You know, a place that's special to you both. That way you can really open up." "Thank you, Clara. I'll think about it," I replied, feeling a little clearer. I hung up the phone and looked back at the letters, now infused with a new light. They weren't just reminders of a distant past. They were bridges to a conversation that needed to happen. Night fell over Seattle, and the city was illuminated by a soft glow. The moonlight streamed through the window, reflecting off the shiny surfaces of the room. I sat back down at the table, the letters before me, and let melancholy wash over me for a moment. A lost love, a love that wasn't me. Sadness wrapped around me like a heavy blanket, but a desire to understand pushed me forward. I decided I would talk to Ethan the next morning. I needed to clarify everything. But in the meantime, a new letter caught my attention. It was shorter than the others, but what was written in it made my heart stop for a moment. Lily, you will always be the shadow that lights my way. Even when I am far away, know that you are the reason for my smile. The words reverberated in my mind, and I wondered, who was this woman still haunting Ethan's thoughts? I woke up early the next morning, with a firm resolution to face my past and his. The sunlight filtered through the curtains, and I got ready with a mix of anxiety and determination. I knew the conversation would be difficult, but it was necessary. I went to the cafe we used to frequent, a cozy place with exposed brick walls and the aroma of fresh coffee in the air. I sat at the table we always occupied, trying to calm myself. The clock on the wall seemed to be moving slower than usual. Each tick-tock heightened my anxiety. Finally, I saw Ethan walk in. He was wearing a blue t-shirt that I loved, and his messy hair gave him a carefree look. But when his eyes met mine, a shadow of concern crossed his face. He sat down across from me, and the silence between us felt heavy. "Hey, Sophie, you look different," he began, studying my expression closely. "Hey, Ethan, I found some things last night. Some letters," I said, my voice faltering a bit. "We need to talk." He paled, and his expression shifted. "What did you find? About Lily? About what you felt for her?" The words came out sharper than I intended, but the pain was fresh in my mind. Ethan took a deep breath, and I could sense the tension in his body. "Sophie, I can explain. It's not what you think." "Then explain it to me, Ethan. What should I think? Put the past on a pedestal while I'm just a phase?" Anger was about to overflow, but I held it back. "No, that's not it. I loved Lily, but it was a complicated love. When we broke up, I thought I had moved on, until you came into my life. You brought me joy in a way I didn't expect," he said, and I could see the sincerity in his eyes. "But you didn't tell me. You hid that part of your life from me. How can I know there won't be more secrets between us?" Indignation grew, and my heart raced. I didn't want you to feel insecure. It was never my intention to hurt you. I just wanted you to see how happy you make me," he replied, his voice heavy with emotion. "And what if I can't ignore this? What if I can't look at you the same way?" I was lost between the pain and the love I still felt for him. Ethan reached out his hand, and I hesitated for a moment before taking it. "Please don't give up on us. I'm here now, and I want to be completely honest with you. I have no more secrets." His words echoed in my mind, but uncertainty still lingered. The battle between my love for him and the distrust that now consumed me was just beginning. Morning light filtered through the curtains of my apartment, casting dancing shadows on the wooden floor. I sat on the edge of the bed, the box still open before me, its letters and objects scattered like a puzzle I didn't know how to piece together. The smell of fresh coffee mingled in the air, but I had no desire to move. The discovery of Ethan, the man I thought I knew so well, had turned my world upside down. As I examined one of the letters, the handwriting was unmistakable. It was his, but the words seemed to belong to someone else. "Dear Clara," it began, and my heart raced. Clara? Who was Clara? I looked around as if the walls could provide me with an answer. Ethan had never mentioned this person, and I wondered why. Why didn't you ever tell me? I murmured, not expecting an answer. The silence of the apartment was deafening, as if the very space was judging me. I got up and went to the kitchen. The coffee water was still bubbling, and I poured it into a mug. As I watched the steam rise, a wave of despair hit me. I needed answers, but where could I find them? The phone lay silent on the table, and the thought of calling Ethan made me nervous. What would I say? Hi. I found a box with letters to another woman? No, that couldn't be the approach. I decided to go out. I needed some air. The Seattle I once knew, with its bustling streets and the smell of coffee on every corner, now felt like a maze of uncertainties. As I walked, my mind was on a roller coaster. With each step, I tried to piece together the puzzle that Ethan had hidden. The faces of the people around me were blurs, and I barely noticed the graffiti-covered walls and the charming cafes I used to admire. Hey, Sophie. The call of a familiar voice brought me back to reality. It was Mia, my longtime friend, running towards me. Her radiant smile was a stark contrast to my state of mind. Mia, I greeted her, forcing a smile. Hi, are you okay? You look different. She stopped beside me, concern etched on her face. It's a long story, I said, looking at the ground. I actually don't even know where to start. Go for it. I'm here to listen, Mia said, pulling me towards one of the benches in a nearby park. Whatever it is, you know you can count on me. I sat down and took a deep breath, trying to organize my thoughts. I found a box in my apartment. It's from Ethan. A box? What was in it? She leaned forward, intrigued. Letters and objects, I replied, glancing at the overcast sky, and a letter to a woman named Clara. What? Clara? Who is she? Mia's expression shifted to a mix of surprise and concern. I don't know. I've never heard of her. Ethan never mentioned this Clara, and now I'm here, wondering how many other things he's hidden from me. My voice trembled, and I felt tears welling up. This is really complicated, Soph, Mia said, placing her hand over mine. Have you talked to him about this? No, I don't know if I can. What would I say? That I found letters that make me doubt everything? I shook my head, frustrated. I thought I knew him so well, but now everything feels like a big lie. She looked into my eyes, as if trying to find an answer within me. You need clarity. You can't live like this, in uncertainty. You deserve to know the truth. And what if the truth is that he deceived me? I felt vulnerable, exposed. What if I find out that everything we had was a sham? If that's the case, at least you'll know. And then you can move on, Mia said firmly. But you need to confront him, sophomore. You can't let this drag on. And what if he doesn't care? What if he thinks I'm invading his life? The thought made me even more anxious. How can I trust someone who keeps secrets? Because you love him, she replied, and her words hung in the air between us. And that's exactly what makes everything so difficult. I looked down, battling tears. I don't know if I still love him. How can I love someone who isn't completely honest with me? Mia took a deep breath and looked around. Sophie, sometimes people have stories they don't share. He might have his reasons, but that doesn't justify the lack of honesty. You need to hear his side. And what if his side isn't what I want to hear? I whispered, the anguish rising in my chest. Then you'll have the chance to decide what to do from there, she said, with a tone of wisdom. But you can't make that decision without first hearing what he has to say. I remained silent, absorbing her words. What Mia said made sense, but the fear of the answer paralyzed me. You're right, I need to talk to him." "Then do it," she said, standing up. "But don't forget, whatever you find out, you are strong enough to handle it." I got up too, feeling a new determination. "Thank you, Mia. I don't know what I would do without you." "You're doing this for yourself, Soph," she replied, hugging me. "Life is full of challenges, but you are stronger than you think." We parted ways, and as I walked back home, the weight of the box and the letters felt a little lighter. I knew I had to face Ethan, that the hidden truths could not stay buried forever. Doubt still consumed me, but now there was a spark of courage burning inside me. It was time to find out who Ethan really was and, more importantly, who I was without him. The letters were spread out on the table, a jumble of words that seemed to dance before my eyes. Sunlight streamed through the window, filtered by the curtains, creating a play of shadows that made everything feel more surreal. I felt like an intruder in a world that wasn't mine, yet somehow it also was. With each letter I read, a new facet of Ethan revealed itself, and my heart tightened as I realized I didn't even know half of him. I picked up the first letter again. The handwriting was elegant, almost poetic. "Dear Clara," it began. Clara. The name sounded like a distant echo, a whisper that shouldn't be resonating in my mind. She was a woman, someone I didn't know, but who had somehow shared a part of Ethan's life. My stomach churned. "I can't hide this from you anymore. The life I built with you isn't the only one I want." The sentence stood out like a silent scream, and I couldn't help but let out a groan of pain. How could he? I murmured to myself as tears began to slide down my cheeks. How could he do this to me? The apartment door suddenly swung open, and I turned, hastily drying my tears with the back of my hand. It was my friend, Clara. She walked in cheerfully, but upon seeing me, her smile faded. "What happened, Sophie?" she asked, her voice laced with concern. "Clara, you won't believe what I found," I said, gesturing to the messy table. "These letters, they're from a woman named Clara. He had a secret relationship with her." Clara stepped closer, examining the letters. "Sophie, are you sure? It could just be a coincidence. The name is common." "Coincidence?" I laughed, but the sound was filled with bitterness. "He talks about her like he's in love. He promises her things he never promised me." She picked up a letter and began reading it aloud. "I miss you every day. You're the only one who knows my true self." Clara stopped, her eyes wide. "This is intense." "Intense?" "It's devastating." I raised my voice, feeling frustration swelling inside me. I spent years believing we were happy, and now I discover there was a side of him I never knew, that I never knew existed. Clara looked at me, and for a moment, I saw compassion in her eyes. "Sophie, you need to understand this isn't about you. He might have his reasons, and maybe not everything you read is true. But what if it is?" I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself. What if he's lied to me all along? I feel so lost. How can I trust someone who hides such a significant part of their life? "You don't need to trust him right now. You need to focus on yourself," Clara replied, her tone firm. "You've been through so much. Don't let this destroy you." I looked at the table again, the letters now appearing more threatening than before. "What do I do with all of this, Clara? How do I move on knowing he was capable of deceiving me like this?" She sighed and sat down beside me. "Maybe you need to confront him. Ask him about it, about Clara. Don't let these letters just be a burden on your shoulders." Confront him? The idea made me uneasy. What if he denies it? What if it just makes things worse? "You'll never know until you ask," Clara said, holding my hand. "You deserve answers, Sophie. You deserve to know the truth." Her words echoed in my head. I didn't want to be a victim. I didn't want to live in uncertainty. I stood up, determined. You're right. I will talk to him. I need to know what's going on. Clara smiled softly, encouraging me. That's right. You're stronger than you think. Thank you, Clara. I really need you right now, I said, feeling a bit of relief. Her presence was like a beacon in the storm. I will always be here for you, Sophie, she replied, and then looked at the letters again. But what if this Clara is a part of his past that he has already moved on from? You can't forget that he is with you now. I know, but that doesn't change what I read. This Clara, she was a part of his life in a way that I never was. Maybe it's time for you to create your own memories with him. Do something that surprises him, that makes him see you in a new way. You're right, I said slowly, considering her words. I will talk to him, but I will also remember that I am important. I won't just be a shadow of Clara from the past. Clara smiled, as if she had seen a light turn on inside me. That's it, Sophie. Show him what you're worth. After Clara left, I sat back down at the table, looking at the letters. The anger and pain were still there, but now there was also a growing determination. I needed answers, and more than that, I needed to assert myself. I picked up the closest letter and read it again, the words echoing in my mind. I can't hide this from you anymore. Deep down, I knew it wasn't just about Ethan and Clara. It was about me, about who I was and who I wanted to be. I will discover myself, I murmured to myself as I put the letters back in the box. And you, Ethan, will have to face me. Night fell over Seattle, and the city lights began to shine outside. I looked out the window, feeling a mix of anxiety and anticipation. Tomorrow would be a new day, and I was ready to face whatever came my way. Still in shock from what I had found in the box, I sat on the floor of my apartment, surrounded by yellowed letters and objects that, in a strange way, seemed to have more to do with a stranger than with the man I thought I knew so well. Memories of Ethan were still fresh in my mind. His smile, his charismatic way of telling stories, and the way he looked at me as if I were the only person in the world. But now, all of that felt so distant, as if it were in an old, faded, and scratched movie film. I picked up one of the letters. The handwriting was unmistakable, the robust and slanted letters full of energy, just like him. The date at the top was from 5 years ago. With a mix of anxiety and curiosity, I opened the envelope. The smell of the paper and ink was nostalgic, a reminder of the past that now felt loaded with secrets. Sophie, I began to read aloud, my voice trembling slightly. If you're reading this, then I'm probably no longer by your side. Not that I wanted to leave, but sometimes life has a strange way of taking us away from the people we love. I paused, feeling a sharp pain in my chest. How could he leave me without saying anything? What was he hiding? I have something important to tell you, I continued, trying to focus on the words. There are parts of my life that I've never shared with you. Not because I wanted to deceive you, but because I didn't know how. It's hard to explain, but I've lived things that changed who I am. And now, maybe it's time for you to know. It felt like each word was turning into a blow, revealing an Ethan I had never known. I was interrupted by the sound of my phone ringing. It was my best friend, Clara. I hesitated but decided to answer. I needed someone to vent to. Sophie, are you okay? Her voice was worried. No, Clara, I'm not, I replied, feeling the emotion overflow. I found a box with letters from Ethan, things he never told me. What do you mean by that? She asked, confused. I don't know, Clara. It seems like he had a secret life, something that he didn't share with me. I can't understand. Wait, Are you saying he deceived you? The incredulity in her voice was palpable. I don't know if that's exactly it, but he was hiding something, and now I'm here trying to piece it all together. What did you find? Clara pressed. Letters, objects. Some seem to be from a past he never let me into. It's like I'm reading someone else's story. Sophie, you need to take this calmly. Don't make hasty decisions. Calmly? How can I stay calm? He lied to me. I didn't know the man I loved. Take a deep breath. Can we meet now? I need you to show me this. I agreed, even though I wasn't sure if it was what I really wanted. I needed someone, but at the same time, I felt like I wanted to face this alone. Clara arrived in about half an hour. When she walked in, I was surrounded by papers and objects, the chaos reflecting the turmoil within me. Wow, you really dove into Ethan's secrets, huh? She commented, looking around. It's not just that, I replied, handing her one of the letters. Read this. She took the letter and began to read silently. With each word, her expression changed, reflecting the same confusion I felt. When she finished, she let out a heavy sigh. This is intense. Clara looked at me. You can't just ignore this. I know, but what if what's here is just the tip of the iceberg? What if he did terrible things? Or maybe he had reasons for hiding these parts of his life. Reasons? I laughed, but it wasn't a joyful laugh. It was bitter. What kind of reason could justify hiding who he really is from me? I don't know, Sophie. Sometimes people have complicated pasts. You've had your secrets too, haven't you? I remembered moments when I had also hidden things, but nothing compared to what Ethan's life seemed to be. That's not the same thing, Clara. I've never lied about something this big. Look, what are you going to do now? Clara asked, changing tactics. I don't know. I need to understand. I need to find out who he really was. And what if that hurts you even more? Clara looked worried, but I could see the determination in her eyes. I can't just stand here, living a lie. I need to know the truth. So, what are you going to do? I'm going to look for more information. I need to understand all of this. Wait, don't you think that could be dangerous? Clara warned. Dangerous? How? He's far away. He can't hurt me now. But what if it involves other people? Sometimes secrets have a way of leading to more secrets. I fell silent, reflecting. Clara had a point, but the idea of letting this go made me even more uneasy. I can't leave it like this, Clara. I need answers. Then let's do it together. I don't want you to face this alone. She took my hand and squeezed it. That simple gesture gave me a bit of courage. What would I find next? I didn't know, but I was determined. If Ethan had really lived a hidden life, I had to uncover the truth, no matter how painful it might be. I looked at the letter again, as if the words could give me a clue, some direction. Maybe amidst all this confusion, I could find something that still belonged to him. Something that wasn't just pain and lies, but perhaps an explanation, a justification for everything. Let's start searching, I declared with newfound determination. And who knows, we might find not only the truth about him, but also about myself.